All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mohit. I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce. And welcome to our Ask Me Anything session for the month of June. We have an exciting session today on Supercharge Development with MCPs. I'm super excited about this. And I want to take a moment and thank everyone here. And we have some amazing panelists too. We'll get into the introduction shortly. With that, right? But first, before we begin, there is a forward looking statement here. So please do not make any purchasing decisions based on features that are forward looking here. And first, I just want to remind everyone today that we have a Trailblazer community. I know a lot of you are looking for collaboration, networking. So, this is our developer community. Please do join us. We share a lot of amazing content here, and we have a lot of experts in this community. So, let's collaborate on that. With that out of our way, let's get to this exciting part, which is MCPs, and we have MCPs. We are working on MCPs across the board here. And it was a really hard choice to pick, only these four. So we also have experts in the chat here. Again, I want to remind everyone, right? So this is an Ask Me Anything session. So please use those chats, flood them with questions, put all your questions there in the chat, and we have a team of experts here who will grab and bring these questions to these experts. And with that, let's actually get into the introductions. We will start with Anush here. Anush, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, Mohit. Thank you. So, hi, everyone. My name is Anush D'Souza. I'm a senior product manager for Heroku. I'm working on Heroku AI, MCP, and how MCP can extend for agents, especially for Agentforce. Super happy to meet you guys and also to talk more about what we are doing and how to extend Agentforce.
Awesome, awesome. And with that, over to you, Ross.
Hey everybody, Ross Belmont here, Senior Director of Product Management from the Core Platform Integration team focused on MCP.
Okay, and then over to you, Vivek.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vivek M. Chawla. I am Product Manager for Platform CLI, DX Foundation Libraries, and our Agentforce DX Pro Code tools. Here today to talk about how MCP is being integrated with Salesforce DX, and really excited to share about what we're doing.
Thank you. And last but not the least, Gary.
Hey, hello everybody. Gary Lerhaupt, VP Product Architecture with Agentforce, leading all things multi-agent and interoperability. Really exciting week for MCP for us, and excited to talk about it more here in a bit.
Awesome. And I just want to give some shout out to everyone in the chat there. There is Gordon from our Agentforce for Developers team. So if you have any feedback there for Agentforce for Developers regarding MCP, please ask Gordon. We also have Julian from Heroku Evangelist team. We have Akshata from MuleSoft Evangelism team. So there's a lot of support there in the chat. So please, feel free to ask your questions. There are a lot of experts. With that, I want to move on here. I know a lot of you are excited about MCPs, and a lot of you are working with MCPs. But I know there are some of you who are just exploring what is MCP all about. So how about we level set everyone? Let's go through some brief content. Again, this is Ask Me Anything, so we'll keep it short. But let's give an overview of MCP, what we are working on, what each teams are working on, and then we'll take your questions and try to address them. So with that, let me first start by explaining what is MCP. So MCP is an acronym for Model Context Protocol. um, and the problem that it tries to solve, and to explain you like what problem it addresses, right? I'll give you an example. So I was working on a very simple Python application. It was using OpenAI's API and some Salesforce tools and resources that I know and love. So I built this, and somebody asked me like, "Hey, I need this same thing, for let's say Slack," and then I had to go and modify the code for the Slack, and then the same utility. Somebody wanted me to work with Claude Desktop. Again, I had to go and modify the code. So you see, what I'm doing here is creating what I call it as resource fragmentation and tool fragmentation, which means, there's this point to point connections that I'm building, not scalable. So when I saw MCP, right, the Model Context Protocol from Anthropic, it's really got me excited. And I clearly understood that this is going to solve my problem, that I'm just going to use the standards and build this as an MCP. So now I don't have to go and tweak this code again. So just to iterate, right? MCP standardizes it. It's a context protocol. It standardizes how these AI models understand and use the tools and the resources that you have. So it's a standard. So that means you build once and then you start using it. Now, to further clarify this, right, I'd like to clarify this with a simple analogy here. So let me explain you with an analogy, right? So you know that MCP is an open standard protocol. It standardizes these application. But a very interesting way to understand is, think of this like a USB-C. So you all use laptops, right? You have USB-C. Think about that USB-C hub that we have. Now with that standard hub, right, we can bring in different devices. We can swap in these devices like monitor, printer, or keyboard, and we can even swap laptops because it supports that USB hub, right? So these devices can be plugged into different laptops, or to the same laptop you can plug in multiple devices. This is exactly how MCP sort of work. So MCP is like that USB port for your applications. So imagine this, right? It's here you see this MCP, you see the MCP host, you see all the resources, right? And because now this is a standard, you can easily use all of the tools. So you build one MCP server for your tool, and then it suddenly becomes accessible across different clients that support MCP, different systems that support MCP. So I hope this gave you a quick intro of MCP context. But I know you're all very curious about what does it mean for Salesforce and other applications we have. What does it mean for development experience? So over to you, Gary, first to explain our developers how Agentforce can get more done with this standard MCP protocol.
All right. Thank you so much for that intro. Yeah, so let's dive in here. It has been a big week for Agentforce. We started the week on Monday with our Agentforce 3 announcement, which is all about, it's about a number of things, but one of the big main pillars was about adding MCP client support into Agentforce. And so let's hit up the next slide. And I just want to walk you through a little bit of how we think about the architecture of pulling in MCP, and how we think about what this says here is secure multi-agent, multi-vendor orchestration, and really around enterprise-grade interoperability. And so we published this architecture out in early May. We put it on LinkedIn, social media, kind of went a little bit viral on LinkedIn, kind of to our surprise. There's a lot of excitement about what we are up to. This is really kind of, when we put it out, it was meant to be sort of like, this is what's happening this year. And now it's starting to be real with Agentforce 3 and the announcements of this week. And so I won't really touch on A2A, except at the upfront here to say that A2A is an agent-to-agent protocol. It allows multi-agent orchestration. It's something that we're going to be building into. You're going to hear us talking more about that as we get closer to the Dreamforce timeframe. But we're here today to talk about MCP. And so what this diagram really shows is we have added MCP client support into Agentforce. It's the idea that you can pull in MCP servers from MuleSoft and their built-in MCP support. You can pull in MCP servers from Heroku. You can have any external MCP server come in there. And that is going to get brought in and made available. We're going to be able to register that into our AI agent gateway. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then the MCP actions, the resources, those are going to be available for you then to build within your agents, right? So you're going to be able to plug in and call out to these external tools, et cetera, so that you can have the tools that you need to make your agents even more powerful. And on top of that, with the Agentforce product that we have, you're going to be able to add guardrails around those custom MCP actions as an example. So, right, you might want to have your business policies wrap around those custom MCP actions so that you can stay in full control of how those should operate, how those should stay within the context of your business, and yet get all the power of the interoperability with the tools that exist in the ecosystem. And so right at the edge of that Agentforce diagram, there's a sort of sideways oval, and it talks about discovery and governance. And that's a really big thing for us, because that's really how we think about making something like MCP and eventually A2A as well enterprise grade. And so I mentioned the AI agent gateway where MCP servers are going to be registered. I want to talk a little bit about discovery because that was also a big tenet of this Agentforce 3 launch that we had. And so if we go to the next slide, you're going to see on the next slide here, this was the other part of our announcement, which is that we are making Agent Exchange the place to go to find what we call certified MCP servers. So we went out in the launch with more than 30 of these from our amazing partner ecosystem network. It's the idea that these are sort of pre-validated MCP servers. And what you're going to find in Agentforce is that you're going to be able to very easily go from clicking on something in Agent Exchange, installing it into that AI agent gateway that I referenced, and then it's going to be available for your builders to build with. Now, I just want to be clear here. These are sort of the like pre-validated and certified ones. You're also very much going to be able to, if you have a private MCP server, if you want to pull something in from Heroku or from MuleSoft, you're going to be able to register that as well into the gateway. But it's a really cool place to go and check out what's going on Agent Exchange with north of 30 of these partners at launch. And then the headlines here on the left, we've got MCP support that we're announcing this week. The pilots are going on this summer. And as well, we're going to be GAing that as we get into the fall. You can start checking out Agent Exchange today to see some of those partners that are going to be part of that experience. And it is an exciting moment. It's been an exciting week. I'm excited to be here with all of you. And so I've talked here now about MCP and how we're bringing that into Agentforce. I'm going to hand it over here to Ross Belmont to talk about how we're going to put MCP in front of Salesforce and in front of Agentforce. So Ross, love to take it over from here, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Gary. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide here, and we'll extend this story by understanding how MCP, will be two-way in the sense that we expect an ecosystem of agents with AI technology woven into all shapes and sizes of apps in your enterprise architecture. And then as part of that, we want to be able to provide a secure, managed, and controlled experience for those that are interested in offering access to their Salesforce logic and assets over MCP. And that's why we're excited to announce a pilot of the SalesforceHosted MCP server. Contact your AE if you're interested in trying this out in its pilot state. At the moment, we are exposing core APIs as tools, and we've got some exciting use cases from our friends in Revenue Cloud who have their own MCP server. So you'll see more than one MCP server depending on your use case and scenario. And we even envision a future in which admins can configure custom MCP servers. ISVs can package those configurations and distribute them, just like any other piece of managed metadata. We're really excited to see where this goes in terms of offering access to our APIs, data in different shapes and sizes, and keep up as this whole space evolves. And as these tools can do more, we want to unlock that potential for you as well. So I just want to take a second on that, and I'm excited to hand it over.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Before we talk about how Heroku extends Agentforce, let me take a second to talk about how developers today use Heroku. Today, Salesforce developers use Heroku to write custom code in any programming language. They also use Heroku to do computationally heavy tasks. They also use Heroku to access databases such as Postgres. So what does this mean for agents? So agents can access Heroku in the same way. How developers access Heroku to write computationally heavy tasks. Agents can have access to tools on Heroku, like using the model context protocol. As a developer, when you're trying to solve a hard problem, you try to write code, you solve the problem using code, and you execute that code. So what if we bring the same tool to an agent? What does that mean? Going on to the next slide. What this would mean is you provide Agentforce an environment that it can write code in. When it finds a difficult task, such as a hard data analysis, Agentforce can reason. It can find the tool to write code and then execute the code. And Heroku can do that for you. So in environments where you need computational heavy things, or you need to write an MCP server in your own custom programming language like Python, JavaScript, or TypeScript, you can come to Heroku to extend these MCP servers. With that, I want to hand it over to Vivek to talk more about the Agentforce developer experience and what that means for the Salesforce DX.
All right. Hey, thanks, Anush. So look, customers and partners use a lot of tools to customize and build apps on the Salesforce platform. Collectively, we call that the Salesforce developer experience. I want to show you how Salesforce DX works real quick and why integrating with MCP is so important to us. So Salesforce DX delivers millions of daily interactions with developers. To do that, first, the Salesforce platform exposes a bunch of core and near core services through a variety of like standard and specialized APIs. From there, each developer environment uses a suite of Node.js packages called the DX Foundation libraries to work with those APIs. Now, those libraries securely store auth information for the orgs that a developer is going to use. They also move metadata, support event functionality like source tracking and decomposition, packaging, all the stuff that a developer needs to do when building against Salesforce. Now, built on top of the DX Foundation libraries are the Salesforce CLI and IDE extensions. These support our frontline IDEs, which are VS Code and Code Builder, but the CLI also supports third-party IDEs and automation platforms like CICD. Now, altogether, that's a diverse group of non-agentic tools. That's changing pretty quickly, though, with the rise of agentic tools like Agentforce for developers, Claude, Cursor, and Windsurf. Now, those agentic tools use the CLI to deliver crucial DX outcomes, but a lot of times they're guessing how to do it when they do. They're smart enough to figure things out eventually, but if it takes an agent 5 tries to do what should have been done in 1, that's a lot of wasted API calls. So that's why we built the Salesforce DX MCP server. And we're giving agents a trusted set of tools that deliver consistent outcomes that developers need. So I say trusted because developers decide which orgs an agent can interact with. Consistent because we integrate directly and we keep up to date with the DX Foundation libraries instead of just being a CLI command proxy. The end result is that agents can deliver the desired DX outcomes faster with fewer API calls, which increases productivity and reliability if you're using agentic dev tools and IDEs. This is available right now to everyone as a developer preview. Like all of our DX tools, the Salesforce DX MCP server is free and open source. Any MCP host can use the DX MCP server via NPX, and it's at Salesforce/MCP. You can see we're starting with a small set of fundamental tools, but we do have plans to add about a dozen more by Dreamforce. Okay, with that, Mo, I'm going to turn things back over to you so we can start the Q&A.
Awesome, and thank you again, everyone, for presenting. And now, all our developers, it's your time now. So please make use of that chat. Send us all your questions. We are here to answer, and there's a lot of brain power here and also in the chat. So let's make best use of all of us here. And we'll start here with our first question that is coming from LinkedIn, from our developer Beachhorn. Beat says, when will Salesforce have native MCP server for its own data to be consumed by external models? I will let Ross answer this for you.
So that's in pilot today. Please get in touch with your account executive to get your hands on it so that we can get your feedback. Yeah, that's mostly what that's centered on right now is a core data API access, which enables, a wide variety of explorations in this early stage. So curious to hear what use cases you come up with.
Awesome. Thank you. There is also a related question here from Michelle. Michelle, thanks for taking time and thank you for attending this AMA. So the question is, are Agentforce MCPs going to be packageable for ISVs, or is it something for customers to implement? I will have both Ross, you answer that, and also Gary answer that, because I think this is a very important question. So again, I'll repeat for everyone's understanding, right? They're asking, are these Agentforce MCPs going to be packageable for ISVs, or is it something for the customers, like the customers to implement? Probably Gary, you can answer this first.
Yeah, sure. I can jump in here. So that's something we're really thinking about as we get going a little bit further in our roadmap, which is the idea that, yeah, we're adding today the ability to consume MCP into Agentforce, but then we're going to want to make it available to publish outwardly, right? And so this AI agent gateway that I referenced is going to be that sort of ingress and egress place that happens. And then the question you're asking about is, well, well, is that up to the customer, or are others going to be able to do that? That is definitely something we're exploring. I will add, we're working with the Agent Exchange team, and this idea that, we have these certified listings. I think that's a really excellent step for us. And I'd say for anyone who's interested in exploring that, please talk to your program account manager and speak with them about being involved there as well. It's partner account manager. I said program account manager. It's something that we're setting up for our partners.
Yeah, awesome. And Ross, for you, I think I'll reframe this question in a different way.
Mhm.
Let's say a customer today uses Salesforce heavily, and
Mhm.
they have they've used Salesforce resources like Apex, for example, or the metadata that they have created, and they go create an MCP server out of those resources, which has proprietary, let's say, proprietary IP that they hold, right? That
Mhm.
they want to expose as an MCP server, all within the platform. Is that also something in the roadmap where they can package it up as MCP server 2 for external consumption? Or is it only limited to the org that they own?
Right. So I'll use slightly more technical language for this technical audience. That we anticipate the configuration of the MCP server to be a piece of packageable metadata, so
Okay.
that you can move it around between environments using, for example, your DevOps center and tools that you'd like to use to have your CICD and things like that. And then that also implies ISV partner access, where those folks have, a different take on what may be an MCP server that combines Salesforce functionality with their unique APIs and assets and IP, like you said, right? And then have that as part of their managed package.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's look at another question that is coming here. Um, and this is an interesting question. Will MCP use still be available if we are not using Agentforce, but let's say something different, maybe some other agent?
Okay, I think I'll jump in here. I believe this is what I'm sort of here to discuss today, right? As we again anticipate a wide range of AI tools, like I said, a whole ecosystem of agents accessing tools from all over, right? And so then in that case, yes, you would be having external agents access your Salesforce logic and assets over MCP, and Agentforce may not be in the picture for that exact scenario. Um, Outside of the idea of the controlled gateway and things like that, that helps monitor and manage.
Got it. Got it. This is a question for you, Anush. Why use Heroku to, host these MCP servers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first thing is that Heroku has scalable compute. So your MCP servers will only be charged or be used only when you have requests. So when you don't have requests, they can scale to zero. So it's very cost effective. That's one thing. Second, we have a very simplified solution. It's as simple as attaching an MCP server to a Heroku app. And the most important thing is we are within the Salesforce trust boundary. So your data does not go outside Salesforce. We already have a solution called AppLink, even before MCP, that connects your MCP servers, so your tools to Agentforce. Similarly, now we have these MCP servers that can also, with remote MCP servers hosted on Heroku with authorization, such that you can have a secure server that connects to Agentforce within the Salesforce boundary, but that can also scale really well for computational heavy tasks to other agents. So that is why, and the same developer and operator experience that we got for developers now also extends to agents.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So moving on to the next question, and this is again coming from a developer on LinkedIn. So the question is more for you, Vivek. So how does MCP integrate with our existing DevOps or CI/CD tools like GitHub, Jenkins? And is there any best folder structure or naming convention that they need to follow for MCP in, say, multi-developer environments?
Well, those are great questions. Just separating them, I'll do the last
Yeah.
part first. The naming conventions, folder conventions, they can vary vary quite a bit. With multiple developers, I think as long as you are tracking everything in Git, you can have pretty good merge detection and merge conflict resolution there. Sometimes it can be helpful to break things into multiple package directories. Even if you're not using packaging, the package directory boundary can be useful to break things up by functionality. And it's kind of an early start on if you did want to maybe break your app from the happy soup into unlocked packages. Package directories can be a good start for that. You can also use a lot of module directories. There's a ton of source organization that you can do, and I would say use what your team finds best, and build from there. Now, as far as MCP is concerned, you mentioned working with Git or I forgot Bitbucket,
Jenkins.
whatever, with
I
working
think
with Jenkins. Yeah. So I don't think that MCP is the right tool to use in a CICD environment, because that's where you want super deterministic outcomes, right? I want to script the movement of metadata, the running of tests, all of that stuff, with the CLI, and you have a DevOps pro who's making all of that work. And frankly, when I'm doing DevOps, I want to make sure the thing runs the same way every time, all the time. MCP is more for the developer, who's actively building something, right? So, if I'm using an agentic IDE, and I know that the term, some people roll their eyes at it, but this is the term that's now vibe coding, right? If I'm vibing with an agent, we're working iteratively on things. That's a one-to-one interaction, and so that's where you want to use different kind of MCP servers and tools, so that the agent that I'm working with has access to the right the abilities and tools to give the right outcome to me. So the Git part of things, there are Git MCP servers that have tools that you would use. There are, if you use GitHub, there's a GitHub MCP server. I think the thing that the DX MCP server will do is, it's going to excel at getting metadata into and out of orgs. It's going to excel at helping you to build packages eventually. All of the, maybe standing up an org, creating scratch orgs, getting basic dev test data into and out of, these scratch orgs. Like, that's going to be the domain of the DX MCP server, and helping you be productive with an agent as you vibe code. That's our mandate, from a DX tooling perspective.
I like that you brought up this vibe code, um, vibe coding here. For me as a developer, I think what makes sense is, instead of like having to, let's say, memorize every single attribute that is there within that CLI command, it just allows me to express what I want in natural language, and let AI and this MCP server figure it out, the right commands for me, and execute it. It'll be much more than having AI, like the model, just come up with its own commands. Because I can tell you, like, from my experience, when I started using one of the tools, like Claude Code, it's a tool from Anthropic. It actually, because it's trained on the older data set, it always used SFDX commands. And it was never able to resolve anything, because now we have upgraded from SFDX commands to SF commands, and there is no SFDX commands. It's been deprecated. But that part of the knowledge is not there with the model. So I can really see how this DX MCP that we have to be super useful.
Yeah, thanks. And that brings up another point, that the one of the strategies that we use when building these tools for the DXMCP server is that we want to make sure that if the agent does something wrong, we provide corrective instructions, not just a flat error message. So of course, if something goes wrong, we're going to give the agent as much context as possible by giving them the error messages. But we have the opportunity, as we build these tools, to offer additional context, and it's a tiny bit of like traditional development that we do to build these tools, and there's a lot of prompt engineering. That way, that we want to make sure that we build tools that help agents get to the right place, even if they make a mistake first. And we want to make sure that those mistakes don't result in extra API calls, because that just makes everything more efficient for everybody, including Salesforce.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Moving on to the next question, and this question is coming from Real on YouTube. The question is, hey, if I build MCP which take data from GPT, I think it is OpenAI's GPT, and get data from Salesforce and get data into GPT like Chat GPT, how can I ensure that my data will be secure and GPT doesn't uses my data for training? I think this is a very interesting question. And I think, Ross, I'll let you answer this.
Yeah, well, I think that is a risk. I would be careful. I think it ultimately will boil down to how exactly the custom built external agent
Hmm.
takes advantage of its LLM, capabilities, right? I think one could imagine a scenario in which someone tries to ride on top of a widely available LLM to create their own agent for certain reasons. That strikes me as a non-trivial amount of work.
Hmm.
I think that would be interesting. Even just from the engineering perspective, let alone what you're describing here, which is how exactly do you ensure safety, right? I think that is something that you would need to look very closely at, and I would probably not move forward unless you were extremely confident in how that training was or wasn't going to happen, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's a tricky area, and it's something that anyone who does attempt to build an external agent, especially on their own from a raw LLM, should think deeply about.
Yeah, and this is the reason why we have Agentforce here. This is the reason why we have Gary's team here, sort of securely building that work for you. So Agentforce becomes a native client for all your MCPs. That way, you don't have to worry about using GPT or whatever. Just use Agentforce. It's secure within our trusted gateway.
Hey, Mo, can I
Yeah.
I'll do a little bit of a plug for something upcoming that is related in a way to that question.
Yeah.
From the developer tooling side, Agentforce for developers, one of the special things that it has always done as as an agentic tool has been to use the secure and safe Salesforce LLM gateway. So there's an AI trust layer that Salesforce offers. And so, as we get closer to Dreamforce, there will be a new agentic chat functionality with Agentforce for developers. And again, so even though that agent will be, receiving parts of your code and things that you might are private to you, they're going to be going to an LLM through the trusted LLM gateway. And so, a lot of those concerns about, what is what's OpenAI going to do with my stuff, right? A lot of that is mitigated by the way that Agentforce for developers, talks to LLMs.
Awesome, awesome, and we have excellent roadmap for A4D. So really excited to see all that things happening here. The next question is coming from Kushal from LinkedIn. So, what are some tools or resources that Salesforce DX MCP server exposes that would boost developer productivity in our agentic IDE? Kushal is asking for some demos actually, and I just want to tell that we have demos coming on Salesforce DX channel from Vivek himself. We're just waiting for the launch of that. It should happen within this week. But let's answer the first question. What tools or resources this DX server today exposes for developer productivity?
So the developer preview has a very limited set of tools because we wanted to get it out to the community, get it in people's hands, and start getting feedback. So things like deploying metadata, running a simple query against an org, retrieving metadata, and then some fundamental tools like a tool that helps ensure that the right username is actually used on each of these MCP calls. So it's a lot of the fundamentals. And how it would impact productivity is that it it enables this vibe coding experience when you're using an agentic IDE like Claude, Cursor, or Agentforce for Developers' new agentic chat. Mo, you said it exactly. Like there's a demo video that I can't wait for people to see. I saw some comments in chat that they'd like to see demos of this stuff. I hopefully that gets posted today or tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll find a way to include or update the resources for this, because once you see how quickly and easily you can vibe with an agentic IDE to get to get work done, it's pretty incredible. And just a simple example is I can run a test against an agent using the Agentforce DX Pro Code tools. By running it through an agentic IDE, I can ask the agent, hey, can you analyze the results? And if anything failed, tell me what failed. And so I'm conversing with an agent as instead of actually trying to digest test results myself and then find the right file. And through conversation, I can make code changes that fix things, as opposed to just the older way of developing, which is I build, I test, I try again, and my iteration is much slower because I'm doing everything by hand.
Yeah, awesome. Excellent point on that, getting hands on. I think this is one of those moments which you have to, as you said, experience it. Like that's what I tell developers. Even if you're not developer, I think probably this is the time to go do some development. Probably you'll be hooked to that, just by the vibe coding. I think to me, like vibe coding definitely opens up the door to actually become real software developers. I mean, I'm pretty sure I vibe coded it. Uh, we didn't know the term vibe coding, but I think I vibe coded it when I started my career. Everyone does some sort of a vibe coding to some extent, right? So I think that would be an advice is like, get this DXMCP server in your agentic IDE, whether you use Cursor, Klein, or any other tool. I think for A4D we are coming up with that experience. But in meanwhile, if you use any of these open source tool, like for example, Klein is an open source tool. I really like them. You can use that and get this DXMCP server and experience it. Just tell it to like do some simple things like run tests, and see it picks up the commands automatically. It comes up with the command. I think one of the challenges with our developer ecosystem was this is a challenge actually, to be able to figure out these commands and type these commands. And now because AI is actually doing that work, it further like makes it very smoother development experience.
Yeah, and Mo, for anyone on the live stream who is hearing about the Agentforce for Developers agentic chat and is intrigued, I did put in the resources a short link to go to the waitlist request form. So we're accepting requests to join the waitlist, so that when the developer preview for A4D's agentic chat becomes available, those people on the waitlist will be the first to know about it.
Awesome. Okay, moving on. I think I have a question for Heroku that just showed up. Let me find that question for you here. Yeah. So, will admin configurable MCP server live inside the SF org, or will it be hosted on Heroku?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the MCP servers will be hosted on Heroku, but you should be able to make configuration changes from the SF admin. So you should be able to provide what tools you want to give access to, what tools you want to disable from the admin, but the servers are hosted on Heroku. But as you know, Heroku is within the Salesforce trust boundary, so it's like being hosted on Salesforce.
Yeah, and this is very important question coming from Jefferson from LinkedIn. How we might be able to develop these custom MCPs and connect with Agentforce on Heroku? Like, explain me this. I think this is a critical point that someone is trying to understand here. Anush, like,
Yeah.
what is the amount of work that will be required once they build like a server on? Let's say they have an existing, application on Heroku, and once they want this thing to work with Agentforce, what's the amount of work that is required to get that thing working?
So that's a good question again. So even right now today, if you want to go link an action or a tool from Heroku to Agentforce, you can do it using something called as AppLink. So AppLink is this add-on that we have. All you need to do is attach AppLink to a Heroku app or a Heroku action that you want to expose, and that automatically shows up on Agentforce as an action. Now, this resource could be an API, this resource could be a tool, this resource could be your business logic hosted on Heroku, and that appears on Agentforce. And that is available today in beta. You can go try it out today. I think there's a link to that in the resources. And yes, so now we're expanding that to MCP. With MCP, you have standard IO servers, and you have there's another transport protocol called STTP. So you have both these hosted on Heroku. When Agentforce has a native MCP client that was announced recently, you'll be able to authorize these MCP servers hosted on Heroku through Agentforce using OAuth. So whenever you have that OAuth, remote MCP server link, and you attach it to the Agentforce client, it opens a OAuth window. And once you log in through your OAuth window, this MCP server tools appear as Agentforce actions. So that is the flow how it works. We will be providing an MCP process or build pack, so we simplify the process in which you can attach this MCP tools. You just put this lightweight process in front of your app, and it automatically becomes an MCP server.
Yeah,
So
love it. Yeah, really, really love it. So again, for those of you like looking for your own MCP implementation, right, and looking for something to host, if you're building like a remote MCP server, I definitely recommend Heroku. If you are definitely looking to integrate with Agentforce, because they've already like sort of abstracted away a lot of that complexity and the pipeline here. So thank you again. This is, I think, a question for you, Gary. Is listing a new MCP server, it's like a typical app exchange security review process? Any more info you have on all of these details, like how they will be able to link those and use that, how is it different from regular app exchange application?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And so Agent Exchange and App Exchange are the same destination. The thing here to do, it's going to be a very similar type of process. You want to reach out to your partner account manager. So this is something that we're making available to our partners. Reach out to them. They can help you get into this new flow with getting your MCP server part of that security audit, that registration into Agent Exchange, so that it can be sort of in that validated list. So yeah, the answer here is the partner account manager is the place to go.
Okay, please talk to your partner account manager. The next question is coming from Mark. Mark, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there a clear decision guide to help people understand when to use A2A, which is agent to agent protocol from Google, or MCP, which is Anthropic's model context protocol? Is there like a decision guide with the right design patterns? Is there anything in work in progress for that? First let's simplify, like, what is A2A, what is MCP, because I know it's confusing, right? Like it's these are new terms, new terminology, a lot of us might not be aware. So Gary, I know that you have a lot of insight into this, so could you help our developers understand the distinction between these two, and then if there are any work in progress to simplify or design guide, put
Yeah,
together and get something like that. Yeah.
great question. Great question. All this is so fast moving. MCP didn't even exist until the fall of last year. A2A was launched in March at Google Next. We were excited to be part of that foundational announcement with Google. Just to talk about it quickly. So MCP, we're all here. We're all excited about MCP. It is an agent to tool protocol. The idea is it's a way to add, as we described it here, it's like USB-C for APIs, right? So you might have APIs, you want to make those available to your agentic experiences. MCP is that path, right? You put MCP in front of it. It's that universal translator so that your agents can connect into those APIs, those integrations. And instead of doing all the complicated point-to-point and authentication and all that, MCP is the answer. And that has just taken off like a rocket ship. That's why we're leading today with MCP client support. A2A is nascent in the crazy scheme of the fact that these things are both less than a year old, but is starting to gain traction. And it is an agent-to-agent protocol, and it is an open protocol. And in fact, Google has just donated A2A as of this week on Monday as well. This news launched into the Linux Foundation. Salesforce is a foundational member of that effort. So it's a very exciting moment where we think A2A, at first there were like all these different agent related protocols coming out, and we were wondering, well, is it going to be many of them? And it really looks like it's consolidating around, if you're thinking about connecting agents into other agents, not tools into other agents, then A2A is going to be the path forward. And I think we do need to put out some great materials that help people understand that, and we can sort of hold hands through that. But we are building that capability into Agentforce. We're very excited about getting some pilots going into the summer there. And the idea is for those dynamic type of use cases where you might have an agent that lives outside of Agentforce, and you want to connect that into Agentforce, you want to go across those ecosystem boundaries. A2A is great because it allows those, sharing of context and conversation history. It allows for long running sort of what is called tasks in the A2A parlance. And so it is going to enable a whole set of very dynamic agents handing off to other agents, doing it seamlessly. We're very excited about that future. But today we're here to talk about MCP. So I'd say if you have APIs and you want to connect those tools in the form of APIs into an agent, we got you covered with our client support in Agentforce.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. I think this clarifies a lot of things for our developers. And this is a question for you, Ross. Do we need Agentforce licenses for accessing the Salesforce hosted remote MCP servers?
So pricing's TBD.
Okay.
We'll get to that. Nothing like that would be needed for the pilot. If you're talking about just getting in and exploring now, right? The pilot and beta, pieces would not come with a monetary cost. We'll have a pricing announcement along with the GA announcement, and any touch points with Agentforce will be something that we clear up, and how that plays out.
Yeah, somebody is asking also, can we get pilot MCP server access in our DevOps? Don't disappoint us, Ross. DevOps.
Yeah, that should be possible. Yeah,
Okay.
they're on the prod stage, so I'm not seeing why that's a problem.
Okay.
Contact your AE.
Yeah, please contact your AE. It could be possible to also activate them in your developer orgs. Also, there is a question, and I think Anush, you can answer this for us. So for Agentforce as MCP client, I think it might be Gary who can answer this. For Agentforce as MCP client, which transport protocol does it support? Is it STDIO or streamable HTTP or SSE?
Yeah, I believe it's SDIO. I think that we're looking into other options there, but yeah, that should work for you.
Awesome. And there is a question on, what are the requirements to list our MCP servers on Agent Exchange? I don't think we have finalized it, correct, Gary?
Yeah, it's the same sort of answer from before. So just to reiterate, Agent Exchange went live on Monday. We made this announcement about having these 30 plus vetted MCP servers. Super exciting to have all of that engagement across our partner ecosystem. I know the number's gone up since Monday. I don't know the actual number. The answer here is talk to your partner account manager. This is something we're making available to our partners. So they're going to be able to plug you in to the process about how we go through the review process and get you listed as well. And we're very excited to have a wealth of participants across the ecosystem, because that, again, to bring it back to the demo or the display I did earlier, we really want to make discovery really quite easy for people to get going with MCP. That then will get registered in their AI agent gateway and ready for builders to build with.
Awesome. Thank you. There's a question from Karthik, which I will answer actually. It's on us, on dev relations. Can we have any hands-on session on MCP? Definitely, Karthik. We take that as a feedback. Definitely, we plan to produce some sessions. Again, Vivek, I don't know if you want to jump in here, but definitely our developers are looking for some hands-on content here. So we'll take that as homework.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of excitement about the different agentic dev tools that are coming, and MCP is a part of that. So yeah, whether it's me or we've got others on the team who from the A4D side, I could totally foresee a dev live session out of this.
Yeah, awesome. Next question. This is for you, Anush. What's the difference between a regular REST API endpoint hosted on Heroku and then brought into Salesforce as an external service versus MCP server hosted on Heroku? Aren't both of these actions under a topic within Agentforce?
Yes. So technically, an API hosted on Heroku can be an MCP server. MCP itself is more than just an API, right? MCP's tools, its resources, and MCP has other things in there like sampling. So
Mm.
if you want to get all those features of MCP, the protocol specifications, and you want a deeper understanding about the context of your tools, then MCP is better for than agent than REST. REST is made for developers or for system to system interactions. It doesn't always have the rich context that the MCP specification has. This could be things like the tool description. The tool description that an agent understands is sometimes very different and more effective with MCP than a API definition, which is made for humans. With my example, I've noticed that the smaller the tool definition, the better it is because you don't flood the context.
Mm.
So that's why it's, even though you can take any API and make it a MCP server using OpenAPI spec, you should probably be more cognizant about how you take these APIs and make these MCP servers. So you don't flood the context, you have great performance, and you just don't throw all the APIs in there to your agent.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that question for us, Anush. There is another question coming. Will MCP allow us to use Agentforce for clients that don't use Salesforce Data Cloud but some other CDP platform? I think
Yeah.
that's a question for you, Gary.
Yeah, I can jump in there. So look, Data Cloud is the tried and true enterprise way to connect data and knowledge into Agentforce. You think about its zero copy capabilities and its fast ability to power your agents. Like that's going to be the best way to do this. But with MCP, we have external tools, we have external resources. We're supporting that natively within our client support of Agentforce, and so you're going to be able to configure that in, use MCP to reach out, to whatever that might be in your case, and pull that in order to power your agents. And I mentioned earlier that idea that you can wrap those actions and resources with instructions, right? Those sort of guardrails, your policies, and that's a level up, right, on that enterprise grade sort of journey that we want to be on. So you can get the data to come in, you can then wrap the instructions around how you want that to be handled before the agent then responds to the given user. And I think that's pretty powerful. But we love Data Cloud. We're built on top of Data Cloud. That's the best way to get going. But if you don't have that, MCP is also going to be another path to power your agents.
Awesome. There is another question for you, Vivek. How do I update the Salesforce DX MCP server after every update?
Okay, great question. So when you use MCP servers with different agentic IDEs, there's usually some kind of configuration file. Like if just at a simple level, if you're using VS Code with Copilot, it's mcp.json in the VS Code hidden directory. The DXMCP server is installed and run via NPX. NPX, has some level of awareness as to when new versions are are published to NPM, and so it should pull the new version. If you want to be sure that every single time you're getting the most recent version, you could add at latest to the end of the parameter where it indicates the npm package link, which in our case is at Salesforce/MCP. If you do want to pin to a specific version as well, you can always do that. So you just add an extra at sign and say at latest or at whichever version you want.
Yeah. And I think this is a question for you, Ross. In the future, with the remote Salesforce MCP server, is there a feature to expose API functions or flows as tools for enterprise use cases?
Yeah, I'll tip the hat a little bit there and say that we are already talking to the folks on the invocable action flow teams, and then also I think to touch on another part of your question, I would be looking at how that logic is exposed as Apex REST methods, and then in that scenario, we've got a clear line of sight to how that would be invoked as a tool like any other API. All right, so that's the path we envision.
Okay. And there is a very good question on security. I want everyone to chime in here. The question says that, somebody is very scared. I think it's Paul from YouTube. I'm right in being scared of the current MCP infrastructure being too open and at peer-to-peer level of maturity. That is, there's no security. So unless of course you're using Salesforce Bitted one. So I mean, really, the question is about the the user expressing that they're really scared because there's no security. There's nothing security baked into MCP specification. Like there's not a lot of security guardrails into it. So any comments on that?
Yeah, just real quick from I understand the concern, and I've even felt it. So if you're using local MCP servers, with an agentic IDE, when you go to install that server, if it's running locally, it's running as you, and Salesforce, we do that with the Salesforce CLI, but the Salesforce CLI is an official product. We take security very seriously. The CLI is extensible with plugins, but those plugins are only allowed to be signed by Salesforce if they go through, our internal reviews, internal ProdSec approval, and all of that. So when I was personally trying to install a Git MCP server, I got halfway through it and I'm seeing, Klein was very helpfully like creating directories and doing a bunch of stuff. And I just stopped because I just didn't know what it was doing and it freaked me out. So that's why it was really important for us to release the DX MCP server, because we do want to have at least a trusted Salesforce official and approved MCP server for this local development. I think the concerns might be different from the hosted MCP servers. Maybe Ross, you can talk about why our hosted servers are more secure.
Yeah, I would, echo a lot of those same sentiments by saying that we wouldn't want our customers to feel like you felt just so that some external agent tool could get access to Salesforce APIs, data, resources, logic, etc. over MCP. That's not what we want. That's not at the level of trust that our customers have come to expect. Trust is our number one value for a reason, and that's a big part of why we're here today with this announcement that if you want to attach a tool directly to the hosted MCP server, we're here for you, and we want to enable that.
All right. Thank you so much. And I think it's the same thing with Agentforce too, correct, Gary? Even with Agentforce, we are making sure that there's a lot of security and governance in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw even now in the chat a question that sort of underscores that, which is like the ability to enable and disable specific tools from MCP servers. That's this AI agent gateway. It gets registered in by that administrative persona. They're able to allow list the specific tools that they want to make available, and then those are then available for builders to build with. So we're very much leading with trust.
Awesome. Okay, so I wish we could get more questions actually on this call, and we could keep going, but we definitely have a hard limit of an hour. So again, thank you everyone for sharing all your questions. We couldn't get to some questions, but we'll definitely get back to you via Trailblazer community. So keep posting those questions. Again, this might not be just that 1 hour. Feel free to post asynchronous questions. Tag all of our product managers here, tag me, and we'll find answers to all your questions. With that, we have some more housekeeping here, so let's get to the slides here, Vivek. So we have an announcement here. We have a partner day webinar coming up. So for all of you partners who are looking forward to learning more about what MCP means for you, there is this webinar. There's this QR code here on the screen. Please scan, register for these webinars. That will be all about MCP and how you can use and build MCPs and be part of Salesforce ecosystem. And moving on to our next slide here. And there are always events. Our DevRel team, we are putting together a lot of Agentforce Now workshops, code live sessions, AMAs like this. So I just want to make sure that you all know where to find them. You can scan this QR code, or there is that URL sfforce.co/agentforce _ now. You can go to that. You will see all the list of events. Please register and also send us your feedback of what sessions would you like to see here. Moving on to our next slide. And again, don't forget that we have this developer community where we can come together, collaborate, share all our learnings. I know this is all happening at a pretty fast pace. It's hard to keep up with all the tools that are coming out. I haven't seen this in my career, at least. Like, I haven't seen, like, every day waking up and turning on my social channels and seeing some new announcements happening. But it's a rapid time, and we are here to help you, so please. And I want to thank everyone here, including our panelists here. Thank you, everyone. I know everyone here is busy building all these tools, and thank you so much for spending that 1 hour with us for our developer community. So
Thanks, Bill, for hosting, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
yeah, thank you, everyone. With that, I will see you in the upcoming episodes. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day and great evening, depending on your
Right.
episodes.